Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast with Michael Becker and Paul Peebles. During this program, you will hear interviews with real-life successful investors who will share their stories and provide useful advice on how to acquire, finance, and operate apartment complexes. Now, here they are, Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. And joining me today would typically be Michael Becker, but he is on another due diligence assignment looking at a nice apartment building. So we wish Michael the best with his group. So joining me in the podcast today is James Eng, Senior Director for Old Capital. James, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Also joining Senior Director is John Brixon. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, Paul, doing well.
Before we start the podcast, I want to give you a personal invitation to come to our May 2nd event up in San Jose. We're going to have one of the best economists I've heard talk a little bit about the Texas miracle up in San Jose. So a lot of people that are investors that invest in Texas, they always take the flight from San Jose or San Francisco to Texas. So this is where we're going to reverse it, and we're going to fly out to see you. And we're going to start this on May the 2nd, about 6:30. But that's going to take an invitation. We need for you to go into the Old Capital Podcast and get a reservation to come to this event. It's a free event. I'm personally giving you an invitation if you live up in the Bay Area to come see us. The gentleman that's going to be speaking is one of the best economists from CoStar, David Kahn, and talk a little bit more about what's going on in Texas and what's the shining star. So I always say, live in California and invest in Texas. James, what else is going on in the Old Capital Multifamily Conference?
Yeah, so the conference we have reserved the date, please. Thursday, September 13th at the AT&T Stadium. So we'll have 500, 600, 700 people there in terms of multifamily investors, but we're also having a panel with listing brokers, lenders, property managers, and then also a speed networking piece, which should be interesting with 500, 600 people. And then we're going to wrap up the day with Roger Staubach. So get that on your calendar. You can go to oldcapitalpodcast.com to register for the event.
Register for the event, then go on to Southwest Airlines or American and get a ticket to come see us. We'd love to see you and shake your hand, talk a little bit about, as Michael Becker says, we're not going to come to you. You have to come to us. You have to build those relationships, maybe a little bit outside your comfort zone, but start building your team on what is going to take for you to be successful in owning apartments. In the podcast today, we're going to kind of go down to the bottom line and talk a little bit about expenses. So when you own an apartment building and you're taking a look at the operating statements, you take a look at the revenue or the income that's being generated by the rental on the property and other ancillary incomes, whether it's administrative for an application or just the rents itself, or it could be maybe water bill backs or electrical bill backs. The other piece that you want to take a look at is on the expense side, whether it's property taxes or it is insurance. But the other line item, which I think is probably the most critical line item, is utilities, and then the utility cost. So as a landlord, some of the biggest expenses are utilities like electric, gas, or water. While landlords have tenants in each apartment pay their own bills, other complexes choose to include rents or utilities in the rents. So either way, the amount of water used at the building can become costly, even if the landlord pays just for the shared spaces of lawn care and related water using areas. By keeping this in mind, it's easy to see that water conservation can become a hot topic for a landlord in order to save on utilities and make apartments buildings more profitable. So in the podcast today, we have the queen of saving water. In fact, that's the name of her company. It is Save Water?
Save Water Co.
Save Water Co. And it's Katie Anderson. Katie's been on the podcast before about 2 years ago. A lot of people love that podcast because it really brought it down to how you can save water and what that fundamentally means on the valuation of your property. So how much money you can save on the utility costs has a direct impact with the valuation of the property. So Katie, thanks for being on the podcast, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul. I like the queen status. That's nice.
Well, I thought about the queen status or our last phrase that we threw out last time you were on the podcast, and And what was the new marketing logo that you have?
I think it was When You Pee, Think of Me.
Oh, I like that one. When you pee, think of me. And what's the T-shirt?
That was thanks to Paul on our last podcast came out with that marketing slogan for us.
And what's the new one that is on the T-shirts?
The one we have on our shirts these days says, "May the flesh be with you."
So I'm going to kick it over to James and John. Let's talk to Katie a little bit.
Sure. Thanks, Katie, for coming in. Just get it started. Maybe tell us about how you guys started in this industry, and then we'll jump into sort of your process.
Yeah, so I was actually in the industry for many years. At one point in time, I was a commercial real estate appraiser. And what I love about that aspect of my journey is I became very familiar with numbers, financials, understanding the valuation of real estate, which has really played as a key factor these days when it comes to water conservation, understanding what decreasing the consumption on properties actually does for an owner from a value add standpoint. So I've been in the real estate industry for many, many years and entered into the water conservation industry at one point, and then on to starting my own company, which was a journey in itself, because what I even thought I had learned about water conservation, once I got into it, completely went out the door. So I fixed the very first project myself, along with two of my teammates who are still with me. And that was a learning experience. So it's been fun sort of throwing everything out the door and then starting from this fresh standpoint and coming up with the innovative ideas and sort of processes and systems and programs that we use today.
So what do you guys do? Because there's a lot of stuff that you could do. And this has become, more and more interesting as there's been incentives from Fannie Mae to do more of this. So just in the last couple of years, but tell us about the services that you provide and sort of when those services come into play for an owner.
Yeah, great. I'll give a general overview of what it is that we do, and then feel free to ask more detailed questions about that. So phase one of what we do is analytics, data, numbers. So what I want to take a look at for an owner is what exactly are your water bills doing today, and what kind of consumption is the property under? Another factor that we want to take into account are water rates. So water rates vary from city to city. When an owner maybe approaches their portfolio and says, I'm going to blanket save 30% across the board, they need to know that that doesn't mean that their water bills will actually come down 30% across the board. That saving consumption 30% in, say, Dallas versus Hurst, Texas, given that the water rates are different, will actually impact their financials significantly different. So the first thing that we want to do is look at all numbers. So again, consumption, financials, paying attention to the city rate structures, understanding that city rates increase on average 3 to 5% a year. So a lot of times owners who are looking at their portfolios from a number standpoint and thinking, oh, I rub my tenants back for their water and sewer bills, need to be paying attention to this rate increase happening. Just because their expenses annually are $100,000 this year, increasing 3 to 5% over the next 3 to 5 years, what does that mean for a resident? Do they have to decrease the amount that they're able to bill back? Will the resident retention rate increase or decrease with their water utilities going up over the next several years? So phase one is numbers, pretty much.
So on that initial cut for the numbers, what do you need from an owner or a potential buyer to take a look at that?
Great. Two different ways to look at this. One, we can do sort of like a surface number type of thing. In that regard, we'd need to see P&Ls. And if we could get access to the property, that's a benefit. There's a deeper dive that we can go, which would mean I would like to see 12 months water consumption at least. And why 12 months? Multiple reasons. One of the main ones, seasonality. Two, just overall city issues that might be happening, any kind of underground leak situation. So I want to get enough data in my hand that I can cherry pick the numbers that are a typical use for a property. We also want to take into account occupancy. So I'll be asking for 12 months of occupancy numbers and also the unit mix. So demographics are a big impact on water consumption just because you've got property A and property B, both one bedrooms. If one property has mostly families living in it and the other one has singles, your water bills are going to look very different. Doesn't mean that there isn't water savings potential on both properties when one might look much lower than the other. Still possible, and also paying attention to all the variables that go into play.
That was a lot. So a lot of people say $50 per unit per month as sort of a rule of thumb. Do you hear that much, and is that right?
I would say that person is missing a lot of potential in their portfolio. So one of the big questions we get asked a lot, especially with our owners and clients that are in acquisition phase, is they're looking at a property and they immediately call us and ask, what are the water rate structures like in the city? And where can I anticipate getting my water bills to? Because blanketing $50 per unit, say in a city with low water rates, we could potentially get that particular property down in the 20s. So if that's beneficial to an owner who's looking at a property where the initial rates are $50 and we can get it down to the 20s, then if they're using that $50, they're missing out on the potential for that project.
And just want to point out, that's per month. So if you go from $50 per month to $20 per month, that is a few $100s per unit in savings over a year's time. So that's great.
And so after that initial cut, then what do you guys typically do? Let's say they move forward. Say you give them a proposal and they buy the property, they close on the property, and then they reach out to you and say, we want to move forward with this. What is that process like for them?
So the great part about doing conservation is there's a whole menu of options available to an owner. So what we'd want to then do is say, phase one is really talking about the numbers and the potential. And then phase two is saying, okay, here are all the different implementation programs that we can do on this property. And these are the savings that it will yield. So an owner at that point gets to look at the menu of services and the different types of programs, as well as the cost of doing those to determine which ROI makes most sense for this project. So the next phase would be going over the programs, the different types of services, and determining with an owner which one makes most financial sense on this particular property.
So a lot of properties in today's market, we're having, toilets being done to qualify for green, but then that's all they're doing, and that worked for a little bit. But now a lot of properties, that's already being done. So what services or what things are you guys doing to sort of still get to that 20 to 25% in water savings?
I would say this is where we come in as the expertise realm in understanding that this is all we do every single day. So there's aspects to these properties when it comes to water use that we're aware of that typically isn't known in the market. And I would say that it's project dependent. So I have owners who call me and say, I just picked up a deal and they replaced toilets. And for us, that's not a problem. So I just asked our analysis guy in the company what kind of results we've gotten on projects where the toilets have been replaced. And we've gotten 30 to 40% savings on top of that. So I would share, and our current clients know this as a part of them being with us when they're looking at properties and in the acquiring phase, is just because a project has had toilets replaced does not mean it wouldn't qualify or that there aren't additional savings, and not small savings. 30%, 40% is possible even with a project that's had toilets replaced.
Okay. And then are you seeing, when these toilets are being replaced, I guess a lot of owners are coming to, like, as a lender, if you qualify for green and you're getting, 30 basis points off your interest rate, you're going to have 6 months to do these repairs. And so some owners are coming to us and saying, well, we're going to have our maintenance guy or property management company take care of it. Why should they be going with you guys in that situation?
So this is another one of those sort of, this is all we do every day. So with that, there comes a level of experience and expertise. I would say that speed is one of the most impactful things that we do and why clients really love to use our service. A 200 toilet replacement project we'll do in 2 weeks. And that's full turnkey plus recycling all of the waste from beginning to end. So I would share that, anyone who's looking to have their in-house management do a project, that what we can do in 2 weeks typically takes people 3, 4, 5 months to complete. Also keeping in mind that when doing water conservation, your bills come down immediately. So let's just say that an owner, by doing this conservation effort, saves $5,000 a month. If I can do something in 2 weeks, then their $5,000 starts immediately. So what might look like a $10,000 savings from a cost standpoint of implementing this effort by doing it in-house is actually a loss of $40,000, because if I can do something in 2 weeks, and the 5,000 happens immediately. So I just saved them 5 months of savings, which is, $35,000.
Okay. And then a lot of people, once Fannie Mae also is going to look at, after you've implemented these things, a year later, they're going to ask for the results. And so how are you guys monitoring sort of once people are putting in these toilets or shower heads or aerators? How do you guys monitor that after you've done it?
So we are also heavy on data analytics and reporting. So with any client that's signed up with us, what we do is we set up reporting inside the company. We take on their water bills prior to implement the effort. We keep track of what implementation happened. And then after the project's complete, we monitor that and also provide reporting. So for our current clients that are using the Fannie and Freddie programs, we're able to provide the reporting that's necessary and needed to say to Fannie and Freddie, yes, we completed this project. Here's exactly what we did. And also here's the numbers run on the impact that it created.
Okay. And then can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the clients that currently use you guys, and have there been any sort of talk about, I know you guys are here in DFW, but then also the scope. So we have clients all over the US, but sort of where are you guys focused right now?
Yeah, I would say, we originated here in Texas. So the bulk of our properties that we've completed have been within the Texas area. However, we've done deals in Oklahoma, Florida, Georgia. We've looked at some deals over in California. And so for us, it's not a matter of location that really matters. The numbers that we're going to be running for an owner are mostly about the water rate that the property is located in. So we've completed over 26,000 apartment units. And the other thing that's really great about us with our data is that we've reached within 5 percentage points of our savings estimate for our owners 95% of the time. So when I bring numbers to the table, like, they are backed by a lot of data, which has been really great. And been one of the other things that our owners have really appreciated about working with us is that when they're making these big decisions, especially big financial ones, they're not making them based on sort of thought and hopefulness. It's actually backed by calculations and data and numbers. And if a client chooses to go with us to actually do the effort, we'll do a savings guarantee for them, which means that if we estimate these savings, we implement the effort, and we don't reach it, then there's an incentive back to the owner for that.
Let's talk a little bit about what actually you guys do. I mean, is it toilets? Is it aerators? What are some of the actual physical things that you guys bring to the table?
Services. So we sort of have a full range, and we've, if an owner's just looking for shower heads and aerators, we're capable of doing that. If they're interested in looking on shower heads and aerators and fixing drips and leaks, we can do that, all the way up to full turnkey toilet replacement, fixing drips and leaks, showers, aerators, exterior leak detection, underground leak detection, meter monitoring, bill audits, data analytics, monitoring, reporting. So for us, we really try to talk to an owner, and then property specific. What are the property's needs? And then what services and programs can we provide that will get this property to?
Yeah, technology changes all the time. And so, if you go back, some of these properties that we finance were built in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and now the 2000s. But the technology that was implemented back in 1970 is not good technology as of today. We were looking at a picture of a 5-gallon toilet versus there was probably 10 years ago, it was maybe a 4, then it was a 3, now it was a 2, now it's down to a 1. So these toilets are becoming much more efficient than they were, which really translates into less money being thrown down the drain, literally, in terms of water. That has a bigger impact to the bottom line and with the increased value. So if you can decrease your water consumption, which means all this are multipliers, your water consumption means less cost. So when you get your utility bill as a landlord, you're going to be paying less, which has a bigger impact, which your NOI is going to be. And divide that out by your cap rate, you can really multiply this into a large valuation piece on the deal. And I've seen some of the data that you kind of have provided. So, I mean, you've taken some of these properties from, say, $10,000, $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 a month in expenses for water utilities and brought them down to, what, about 30-40% less. I mean, significant cost savings.
I think our top number to date for savings is 67%. So we've taken projects with utilities and cut them by 67%. And I would say that consistently, time and time and again, we easily get into the 50s. So on one of our programs, I can cut usually between 50 and 60%.
Now that really is amazing for the bottom line. I wish we could do that for electric or other utilities, but water is such a big thing that you guys won an award last year. You guys went over to Singapore, and tell me a little bit about what that was all about.
Yeah, so we won the award. It's called the Cartier Women's Initiative Award, and most are familiar with the brand Cartier, which is actually a jewelry brand. So you might be wondering, how did jewelry get involved with water conservation? So the thing about these big brands is a lot of them are starting, or I say a lot of them, I can say Cartier has started utilizing its size to support social impact ventures around the world. And what they've done is set up this side branch where they do a global search for women entrepreneurs who are doing social impact ventures. And they've divided the world into 6 regions. So for North America, what they did was interviewed 1,500 applicants, chose 3 finalists. And fortunately for Save Water Co., we were chosen as one of the finalists. They then flew us to Singapore last year, where we competed for a week. And there were a panel of judges, 5 American judges and 1 from Canada, to pick a finalist winner. So in this competition, it was almost like the Grammys night. It was really great. Fortunately, again, we were chosen as the winner for North America. So to date, Save Water Co. is the winning laureate for the Cartier Women's Initiative Award, which is honoring women entrepreneurs that do social impact ventures.
I mean, that really is unbelievable, because they probably looked at, you probably save, 650, 700 million gallons of water, and probably about the same in the waste that comes into the landfills too.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. A big direction that Save Water Co. has gone in. I remember the first project where we ever replaced toilets, and a piece of our mission statement is to have environmental impact. So the core nature of what we do is saving water, which check. And then when we replaced these toilets, I asked my team what happened to the old toilets, and they shared with me that they went to the landfills. And to me, I thought, well, that feels out of integrity. So here we are as a company saying that the core of what we do is save water, which is a positive impact on the environment, and then we pollute the earth with the waste. So that was not okay for us. And one of the things that we've innovated since is the recycling of all the waste from our projects. So one of the things we do is take the old porcelain, we break it down, it's put into concrete, and the state purchases it back for use as road fill. So on all of our projects, not only are we doing the impact effort, and all of the waste that's coming from these projects are being recycled and deferred from the landfills. So that's another part of our social impact is we've saved to date just at 1.1 billion gallons of water, and we've deferred just over 460 tons from entering the landfills. And what's really great about working with our clients is, and this is what I love about the apartment industry, is to have you all really think about what kind of impact potential you have your hands on when it comes to the environment. Meaning, if you have a 10,000 unit portfolio, what you really have are access to 10,000 single family homes with access to buy a few driveways. So whenever we go onto these projects, we're not just going onto a 200 unit project. We're able to impact 200 single family homes in one driveway. So from an impact standpoint, what we provide our clients is not only do we do the effort, we provide a sustainability report after the effort's over with. And we've found that it's been a really great marketing tool for them to use with their investors. So not only are we able to increase your financials, increase the value add to your property, we're able to showcase the exact environmental social impact that's happening at the same time, so that owners not only get to make money, but they're actually doing something really good for the community.
So I can make money and feel good at the same time.
Exactly.
That's great. I think for a lot of owners, especially when they're going in to buy the property, they're out there raising equity and they can sort of build this into their budget. But for a lot of owners that maybe they've owned the property 2, 3, 4 years, and now you come to them and say, well, they love the idea, but the cost is prohibitive to them. Maybe they were a syndicator and they raised the equity, and now they don't have the, whether it's 250 a unit or 500 a unit to do this. And so what are the options for them in terms of getting this done?
So I would say that this is where phase 2 of what I spoke about earlier really comes into play, meaning we sit down with the owner, we talk about the financials and the budget that they're with, and then we talk about what are all the different programs and options available and what are the costs to do that. So I would say that if you were to take our cost numbers to date and put them next to a management company doing this in-house or hiring some other, the cost is going to be very similar, except that this is all we do every single day. So I would say that there's a level of expertise coming to the table that's probably not going to happen going elsewhere, and also the speed at which we're able to do it.
So I guess let me say the question again. If you come back and you give them a proposal and say it's $50,000 for their property and they don't have the $50,000, but they still want to get it done, is there any way for them to do that? Or?
Okay, I understand now. So yes, so what's also really great about working with us is that we have capital to fund projects. We can do shared savings. We can do financed options. We can. The idea, again, during phase 2 is that we'll also bring to the table different financing options for an owner. So if they don't have the $50,000, then we'll look at what it takes for, say, Waterco to finance the project to make it happen and be with the project, monitoring it over a period of time.
Perfect.
Anything else that people who are buying apartments these days, when do they bring you in? They bring you up front into the transaction? Is that typically how it works?
I'd say right now we really get brought in the moment that somebody's starting to look at a property. And again, it's because of, an owner's looking at this property to buy it. They're trying to make sure that all their numbers and their estimates of what they can get a property to are adding up and going to make sense. So what we're able to do from the utility expense side is sure up their estimates of what's possible on this particular project. So we're able to give that kind of advice better at the very beginning before an owner or while an owner is thinking about purchasing a project versus an owner already owns it and it's, now we're coming in and saying what the estimate is. So both are great. It's just that if the earlier we're brought in, the more we're able to sure up and support an owner who's looking at acquiring a project.
James, you just recently had done a little video on Facebook on the Old Capital lending site, and you focused a little bit about doing kind of a walkthrough as kind of the eyes of a potential buyer looking at a property through the lender's eyes, I think. And you focused a little bit about these toilets. I mean, that's something that if you are going on site and you are doing some walkthroughs of properties and you're just kicking the tires, those are important things to take a look at. Don't you agree?
Yeah. So, in that video, as a lender, you're not only looking at the wiring of a property and the electrical panels, but now because Fannie Mae gives you such an incentive to qualify for these green programs, and last year it was a 20% water saving, now they're going to 25% water savings, it becomes more and more important for you to get an understanding of what the current owner has done already and what you can come in and bring somebody like Katie onto the property with you, and they can really take a look at, I can tell a 5-gallon toilet from a 1-gallon, but I can't really tell a shower head or aerator or any of these other things. And they can probably see a couple more things on the property where you could save a lot of water.
Yeah, the green program requires to have a report done to it. It's like maybe 110, 120 page report. And it goes into great detail of what the engineer says of what could be saved. But it's something that you want to have Katie and her team looking at it and making sure it does make sense or it can be done.
Yeah, I would say the last thing an owner wants to have happen is make promises, especially to their investors or anybody who's involved in a deal, on numbers that they are going to be able to achieve. Because a lot of times acquiring a project is based on just that. There's due diligence running of, okay, here's where the property currently stands from a financial standpoint. And this is where I think I can get it, which is X value add. And that's the return back to all of the investors that are involved. So I would say that the last thing an owner or somebody in that position wants to do is think that they can get a project to this certain specific numbers and then not being able to do that and deliver. So that's one of the great things about coming in and using a company like ours or using, say, Waterco, is that we're backed by data so much that we can sure up this estimate for an owner, especially in the acquisition phase. So if they come to us and say, here's my property I'm looking at, really, what can I get it to? Then that's when we come in and say, you can get it to here, and here's all of our data to support that number for you.
And I would say also, I mean, Fannie Green has been out for a few years now, and James and I are seeing more and more properties that have already gone through that first round of water reduction. So maybe a few years ago, the quote unquote low hanging fruit in terms of water savings were out there, and you could hire a general maintenance person who can figure out, okay, all I do is just replace the toilets and put in aerators. I think now more than ever, it's important to have somebody that focuses on water savings and water reduction.
Well, we've even had owners take our estimate and savings and give it to Fannie and Freddie, especially on these projects that look really close to maybe not qualifying. And again, that's one of the great things about going with us is that we're able to provide an estimate with shored up numbers in a way that that analysis could then be presented to Fannie and Freddie on projects that look slim. And we know enough about what we do and the property that we can showcase it's actually above
The third party property management companies who have the maintenance person, they can't show that, can they?
Well, I would say that, I mean, we were just talking about this with somebody this morning, that the barriers to entry, I mean, we've got many projects under our belt. And again, this is all we do every single day. So it means that I'm looking at bills and numbers in a way that most people who have a ton of other things on their list of to-dos are not looking at. So I would say that there's probably lots of people in the market who can do an okay job at water conservation, and this is sort of the expertise that we are able to bring to the table.
I was talking with somebody over the weekend, and that person was asking me, "Give me the inside scoop. How do I get into some of these deals where I can get my price to make sense?" Because a lot of these sellers want to sell these properties at top dollar, and it is what it is. But a little bit of your leverage is your utility cost. And if you can reduce that utility cost by 30-40%, and you interpolate that to being increase of the potential valuation of the property by the savings, you can get there to make those numbers work.
Yeah, we were talking about the competitive advantage. So because we do this every single day, there's a level of knowledge and understanding that gives us a competitive advantage. And I would say that that's the beauty of companies that have created success and are achieving numbers and are able to guarantee them above what competitors might be able to do. So there is a competitive advantage that going with an expert or somebody who is as knowledgeable in a certain area can give a particular owner who's looking to get that, especially in a competitive market.
I mean, I love that 95% sort of saving certainty. I wish we had that much on property taxes.
James, bring it down to the bottom line. Why do buyers and borrowers want to participate in water conservation? I think everybody agrees that water conservation is a good thing, but why in apartment buildings? Why is it so important? Let's just bring it down.
I think two things. Number one, lower interest rate on Fannie Mae loans. Number two, your expenses are essentially down. I mean, we've seen Fannie underwrite, when you qualify for this program, they'll reduce it by about 15% and give you some credit for that, because I think they've seen that in general. But, Katie here, she's done 30, 40, 50% savings on the water side, and it just is a huge difference maker in terms of your NOI. And so, capping these savings at a 6 or 6.5% rate, then it's just making a huge difference on the valuation of a property.
Katie, anything more to add?
Yeah, I have one last thing to add. I would like to share with all the owners out there to be very, very careful with what product they're putting in their properties. So the assumption is you might go to a retail store and there's a toilet that's 0.8 gallons or 1.28 gallons that's cost $100, and here's a 0.8 toilet or 1.28 toilet that costs $300. They both kind of look the same. They're both white. They both say what kind of water they use. And I will just share that what we have found in the market and why we're able to achieve, or one of the reasons why we're able to achieve savings such as 30% on properties that are not that old, is due to the product that was put in there. Quality absolutely matters. So I would share with an owner, think of this as buying a car. If you buy a new car, there is still a level of maintenance that goes on. You have to change and rotate your tires, you have to change your oil, etc. So when you purchase a car, you're typically thinking, how long is this car going to last me? How soon am I going to have to do a maintenance? What kind of quality? And all of that plays into the quality of the car. So I would encourage ownership groups to do due diligence on product and the quality and also the sustainability for them, because I've seen product leak within 1 to 2 years after installation. So this isn't just about, oh, I bought this property, I've got a 5-year hold on it, I'm going to go out and buy this toilet, it's 1.28 gallons for $100. I'm going to install it. And then they wonder why their water bills increase within 2 to 3 years. And it's because a majority of those toilets are all leaking at this point. And one leaking toilet can cost you $100 a month. So the thing about working with us is that we have done due diligence in the market on products. We are not sold or have a signed agreement with any one product out there. We're constantly testing them. The idea is that we're able to provide each owner, here are all the specs and understandings of the product on the market that lets them get the knowledge and information to make the best decision for themselves on installing the quality product that's going to sustain.
I think it's pretty clear. So what's the best way for people to reach out to you, whether they're in the process of an acquisition or looking at a deal, or even want to get it done right now on a property they already own?
Great. I would say reach out to us on our website, www.savewaterco.com.
That's great. Some great information. Thanks for helping us kind of understand a little bit more about the importance of saving water, not just having water go down the drain and your money go down the drain with it, but what the type of an impact it can have on the valuation of properties. I mean, if you can save 60%, 55 or 60% of your utility bills just on the water piece, I mean, you would be amazed what type of an impact that's going to have on valuation of your property down the road. So I wish that we could do that with, like what James says, with property taxes or insurance or even electric, but you really can't. But you get the same impact by putting in better toilets, better aerators, better functional things that the new technology that Katie provides can help us as apartment owners. So Katie Anderson, thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate that. James Zhang, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Paul.
John Brixon, have a good day.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please join us at oldcapitalpodcast.com to sign up for our weekly email updates. We'll see you next week for another great interview.